Hello everyone and welcome to round 4 of the Superbet Chess Classic Romania. Currently being played, it is round 4 and we have a nice game between Jan-Krzysztof Duda versus Levon Aronian, featuring one of your favorite openings. I'm not gonna say which, but you'll see in about 4 moves. And no, it's not that one, so sorry about that. But yeah, let's check it out. This is the last game we're showing from round 4. Then we're going to discuss the standings and what is happening at the tournament. So Duda with white opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5 by Levon, knight f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. And we have knight to f6 that we have pretty much every other game, where d3 is the more, standard reply or the more usual one, but here Duda goes for knight to g5. This is the knight attack, and I believe it is everyone's favorite, and it is pretty much what everyone learns when they start learning chess. And some 200 years ago, this was when white played this, it was game over. There was no way for black to continue. You're going to lose on f7, and that's it. And then a very, very strong chess player, you guys know which, decided that pawn to d5 just takes away everything from white, and that it's actually great for black to play. In the beginnings, people didn't really believe it, because after he captures on d5, knight captures on d5, and now you ran into knight captures on f7. And although you can play this if you have the soul of silicon, at a human level, very unlikely. Queen f3 check, you have to play king e6, and good luck playing this, even though people do play it still today in Blitz and Bullet. But at a lower level, more often than not, your opponent will just go king g8 and you will suffer a disgusting checkmate like this. So that can happen. Also, b5 is a move that you have to be ready for if you play this with white. I already mentioned this. I played at a classical tournament a couple of years ago, and I don't know, it was either maybe the gentleman playing against me was 9 or maybe 10 years old, played pawn to b5, and I've never seen this move prior to that game. And I was like, what is this? And I captured on b5, which is, it's not terrible, but it's already giving black equality. You have to bring the bishop all the way to f1. So when the queen captures on d2, you have the g2 pawn defended, and then you develop with tempo. And once the queen moves, you capture on b5. So that is the precise way to play if you are to keep any edge with white. But okay, after e captures on d5, they continue in the main line, knight to a5. Bishop to b5 check, c6, we have d captures, b captures, and now again we have a deviation from the main line, as here bishop to e2. Levon at some points in his life with white, he even played bishop to d3 here. Also, I think Alexei Shirov tried some bishop to d3 ideas. It's, when you play so many games with bishop to e2, you try some bishop to d3, as bishop to d3 is the top move recommended by the engine, and I think the engines introduced bishop to d3. I could be wrong, but I think it was around the time that it was noticeable at the top level that bishop to d3 started appearing. But the main line is bishop to e2, or rather the most played line, h6, knight f3, e4, and then after the knight comes to e5, you will play bishop d6. Now d4, if captures, you can capture back with the knight, with the bishop, with the queen, or if queen to c7, then you just continue development. Black can win a pawn, but black is not playing this to win material. Black is trying, to activate his two bishops and go for some sort of attack, keeping a lot of activity. So after b captures, that can be played, but no bishop d3, no bishop d2, queen to f3. This is the third most popular continuation, and you are saying, okay, you capture my bishop, I'm going to capture your rook, and also I'm threatening to capture on c6. I'm attacking it with the bishop and with the queen, but that's only a trick. White isn't really threatening this, as you don't want to give up your light square bishop for this pawn. That would be silly. And Levon plays bishop to e7, which is a fairly rare continuation, because this is still theory all. Usually they go rook b8, they attack the bishop, they force bishop captures, and then after, let's say, captures and captures, black just plays knight to d7. Blocks check, now threatens to pick up the knight, and you have ways of playing this. If d3, you pile up on the knight. If the knight goes back, you go bishop to e7, for example, castles. And yes, white is up a little bit of material, but you will gain, for example, this beautiful diagonal for your bishop. You're already up in development a lot. and you will have a great game. Objectively, black is better here. So after queen f3, Levon plays bishop to e7, and now we have bishop back to d3. Just getting the bishop out of harm's way, because well, you could run into something like h6 or e4 or even bishop to g4 attacking the queen, and the bishop might be in trouble if the queen has to move from this diagonal, or you might be forced to capture on c6, winning a pawn, but it's not really a spectacular pawn. So castle's king side, we have knight to c3 and pawn to h6, knight g to e4, knight to d5, and now knight to g3. We have knight to b4, putting pressure on the bishop and on the pawn, knight to f5, a beautiful square for Duda's knight, and now knight captures on d3. And there is one game where c captures on d3 was played. Hagen Poš played it against Stević Hrvoje, but he lost that game. Here we have queen captures on d3, and it seems like you're offering a queen trade right away. You're not really. If you capture on d3, of course, white has this beautiful Zwischenzug. Knight captures on e7 check, and then recaptures, and then you're just going to be down a piece. So after queen captures on d3, which is, and it is now as of this move that we have a completely new game, we have pawn to c5. Levon just makes room for his bishop and says, all right, you capture, I'm going to recapture with the rook, and that's perfectly fine. So queen captures, rook captures, bishop captures, rook captures would be terrible as the bishop is hanging on e7, and now knight back to e3 as the knight on f5 is hanging. Knight to d6, the engine says is a little bit better, but I mean, looks just a bit too adventurous. I mean, but yeah, what are you going to do? Knight e3 and pawn to f5 by Levon. We have b3, preparing to fianchetto the dark square bishop. I find that when I play this with white, the knight attack, that fianchettoing the bishop to b2 is almost always the way to develop your bishop. We have pawn to f4, grabbing more space, and now knight e to d1. And here it's a very unpleasant choice for Duda. Do you go knight e to d1? Do you go to d5 and then allow bishop b7? Do you go knight c4 and allow the doubling of the pawns? The engine says that this is even the best, but I mean, after bishop to c5, bishop to b2, and bishop to e6 going after the pawn, you will defend it with knight d5, and after rook a d8 going after your knight, you will play bishop c3. And now after bishop captures, knight captures, you get bishop captures on c4. And now it's equal material, bishop versus knight. It's hard to say what is what. Usually when you have play on both sides of the board, you have a bishop. Of course, you are the side with the advantage. But again, it's hard to say. 3 pawn islands versus pawn 4 islands, it would be equal. So after f4, knight e to d1 by Duda, and now knight to c6. Levon goes after that d4 square, and bishop to a3 will not be a problem since this will come with tempo. But what else do you play? Bishop to a3, knight d4, and now rook to c1, defending the c2 pawn, and Levon plays rook f6. Beautiful move by Levon, inviting bishop captures on c5. Even though it's the best move, after rook g2, it's not easy. You have to play king to f1. Point is that if you castle, then bishop to h3, and you can resign. There's no good way to play this. So after rook f6, knight to b2 was played, rook to g6, and now Duda plays king to f1. We have pawn to f3, g3, and bishop to f5. Now piling up on that f2 pawn. So bishop captures on c5 and knight captures on c2. I will just show one line even stronger than knight captures on c2, and that is rook to c8, where, okay, you just improve your situation here. You basically force the bishop captures on d4, and then you will still get the pawn here. You will chase away the knight, and you will gain pressure on that c2 pawn. And if b4, which looks like why not, then after a5 and a3, you will simply play knight captures on c2, and again your position is beautiful. So after bishop captures on c5, knight captures by Levon. We have h4. Rook to c8 now, attacking the bishop, and the bishop captures on a7. We have bishop to a5, and now knight to c4, attacking the bishop. Bishop captures on c3, d captures, and now rook to a6. So giving up the bishop pair, but you will now gain the a2 pawn and the very much needed second rank. We have bishop to e3, and rook captures on a2. we have king to g1, bishop to e6, now again threatening to win material, and the bishop to b6. Maybe you could move the knight, but it's hard to say. Not a lot of good squares. And also, if you move the knight, you're just going to lose the c3 pawn, and it just looks terrible. So here, Duda gets a very nice idea. He plays bishop to b6, and now after rook to c6, threatening to win the bishop as well, bishop to a7, saying, okay, you capture my bishop, but then I'm going to capture your knight. Bishop captures on c4, we have b captures, rook captures, and now we have bishop to b8. And this is the losing move, going after the pawn, thinking, okay, Levon captures here, I capture here. There was a better move. And do you see which move is better? There's only one way to maybe not even save the game, maybe, you know, be on the right path towards saving the game. What would you play here with white? King to h2. That is the only way to play. You just give up the c3 pawn and then you activate. Bishop to b6. Okay, now your bishop actually was hanging. And now after, let's say, rook to c6, you will play rook to b1. And now after whatever, let's say e4, you get the other rook into the game. And it's still very dangerous, but, you know, you can maybe play it. There's some e3 action, and then the only way to survive this, you cannot capture with f captures, because then knight to b4 check, and you are, you know, just getting destroyed here. You're getting checked, and you're going to lose the bishop here. The way to survive pawn to e3 is actually to play rook captures on c2, believe it or not. And then after rook c captures on c2, you play bishop captures on e3. And with this, you know, bishop guarding f2, yes, you can actually survive this. So it's a crazy line. But after bishop to b8, Levon is now winning, and there are actually many ways you can do this. The most natural one is the one that Levon played. Of course, Duda wants to trade the c pawn for the e pawn, so Levon just advances it. Pawn to e4. We have bishop to f4, now stopping pawn to e3, and Levon plays rook captures on c3, which is strong, and I will show you a line that Duda supposedly stopped by playing bishop to f4, and that is pawn to e3, you know, nonetheless. F captures on e3, and now, well, I mean, do you see it? It's absolutely disgusting. Rook captures on f4 is nice, but knight to e1. This is the killer idea. f2 check is coming, or if you don't capture the knight, then knight to d3 followed by f2 check, which is even stronger. So you're gonna have to capture, and then after f2 check, king f1, you're gonna bring your queen into the game, captures rook a1 check, king f2, and you pick up the rook as well, and now you're just up a lot. So after bishop to f4, the reason why Levon missed this is that he found that rook captures on c3 was sufficient to win the game. That's the only reason Levon did not look for this e3 move. I mean, with 9 minutes on the clock, Levon finds it 100 times. King to h2, finally Duda plays it, and now pawn to e3. And it's sort of a theme, whenever I say, okay, pause the video and find the best move, players find it, but, not immediately, but on the move after the move that it could have been played, because it would require you to calculate a lot to play it right away. And now if f captures an e3, your king is on the second rank, so, 91 checking, h3, and rook captures on c1. Wins material and the game. So g4 was played, pawn to e2, king to g3, and now rook to d3. And of course, Levon knows what he's doing. The question is, do you see what Levon is doing? We have pawn to h5, king to h7, and now rook h to g1. And I could ask you to pause the video, but I'm pretty sure you guys see what Levon played. Just for fun. Okay, have at it. The move, of course, is rook to a1. This is what Levon played, and it was in this position on move 40 that Jan-Krzysztof Duda resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. the threat is simple. You're just gonna capture on c1 and then gonna play rook d1, or if you decide to win material, captures, captures, and captures, still rook to d1, and Levon gets a queen. Regardless of what white does, you could just move the rook and then a queen comes into the game, or you trade and then a queen comes into the game, and of course a queen is much stronger than a bishop. So yeah, beautifully played by both of them. Duda really tried, his everything to take Levon maybe out of book and maybe, prepare something, but Levon was ready for everything. And this queen to f3 line, being played in a classical game at this level, I don't think I've seen it in a very, very long time. Duda tried, but Levon said not today. Rook to a1. Duda resigns, and a beautiful victory for Levon Aronian. And what does this mean for the standings after round 4 of the Superbet Chess Classic? Well, the leaders are Fabiano Caruana, MBL, and Pragnananda, with 2 points. Wesley Levon Aronian, and Bogdan Daniel Dak, and Alireza Firuzja, and with 1.5 points, Jan-Krzysztof Duda, Nodirbek Abdusattorov, and Gukesh, the world champion. And it's sort of a recurring theme. The Dingliren played his worst chess ever, or maybe he's not worst chess ever, but he had the worst results in classical tournaments after becoming world champion. And it seems that Gukesh is following in those footsteps, but okay, it's still early to say definitely. It's not that you start playing worse when you become world champion. Is that everyone tries 100 times harder when you are the world champion because they want to have it in their resume, that they have defeated the world classical champion. They will prepare much harder for the game. They will, try much harder to save the game. They will, it's just you're playing a world champion. You will give it your all. And that is, something that you have to deal with, which definitely makes Magnus's reign all that more impressive because he just didn't care. But yeah, we'll see. It's still early, round 4, so anything can happen. That's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Beautiful line, the knight attack. I always play it. I never play pawn to d3. I just love knight g5. If you liked it, try it. It's fun to play with both white and black. I would like to thank Iwan Czech, Only Bullet, Random Pawn, Douglas van Bandhuizen, and Samuel Kamuli for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check upon your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.